Hello, everybody. Good day to you wherever you are. In this segment, we are going to take a look at the evolution of LTTE. The LTTE stands for Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. The what uh, what really happened in Sri Lanka back in 2009, and where it's all started, and just trying to take the salient uh, points and information that would make us understand this issue somewhat in somewhat better than we already know. And that said, in 1975, uh, a group of young men in in northern part of Sri Lanka, the Tamil area, the north and east, are inhabited by the Tamilians in Sri Lanka, and the rest of the island is inhabited by the majority Sinhalese. The Sinhalese easily uh, form about 80% of the population, and the Tamils close to 20%, but then they had become a dwindling population, most of them leaving the shores of Sri Lanka, especially after the 1983 so-called ethnic riots between the Tamils and Sinhalese. The Tamils were decimated, and their shops were looted completely, and houses were burnt down. Nobody knows the exact count of people who lost their lives, the Tamil people, and lost their lives in the hands of Sinhalese. Now that's all apart. We are so it's a percentage wise Tamil, the second largest population in Sri Lanka, but in terms of in terms of number of the population, it is percentage wise, they are less than 20%. So that said, we'll leave it at that. So in 1975, the Tamil Sinhalese issue, the conflict, that's majority ruling the minority and trying to disrespect the minority, the rights as a community, because the British left in 1948. In 1958, the Sinhalese leaders, uh, in their short-sighted wisdom, decided to switch to the native language, Sinhala language, making it the official language of Sri Lanka. That brought about the Tamil grievances because they were overlooked. They are a sizable population, and they contribute in a big way in politics and in economics, in the economy of the country. So all that is there. So, anyways, so that's the root cause of the conflict between the Tamils and Sinhalese in Sri Lanka. But in India, we have, I believe, 63 million people in the southern part of India. They enjoy autonomy. Each state enjoys autonomy in India, and I think there are 29 states. Each has their own regional government. So 63 million in South India, they have their regional governments. Although there is similar operation by the central government trying to reinforce the Hindi language on all the regional governments against their will, because if you study Hindi, most states they study as second language, and in order to get to be employed in the government sector, all that is true. But regardless, they do not know the pains of the Sri Lankan Tamils who have been discriminated in the hands of Sinhalese. Although there is similar discrimination in India, it's slightly different because the South Indian Tamils enjoy the autonomy. They have their own government, they have their own language, and it's a bigger population. And even the South Indian state is probably 4 times, 5 times bigger than the island of Sri Lanka. So they may not have the full grasp of what the Tamils have been through, although it's their own brethren. That said, so a group of boys, in the early stages of the post-independence in the island of Sri Lanka, the Tamil leaders, the politicians, the erudite, learned men, so to speak, they used the diplomatic political means to settle their differences, and the political dialogue uh, and diplomacy being the modus operandi to settle the grievances did not work out, and they were always. I mean, no matter how many years they had been talking, from 1958 until 1975, until the rebel movement began to take root. Uh, so many years. And the rebel movement, the boys, as they were boys, they took to arms, seeing the injustices and what is going on, and these political leaders are not showing tangible results. It's not 1 decade or 2 decade, more than 58, 68, more than 2 decades. I think close to 2 decades. That said, so the boys, it started with 22 boys. Prabharan was there, uh, and there were others who were, I guess, dominant in the group. Uh, the first assassination, they didn't touch the Sinhalese officials when they started. They tried to eliminate the Tamil officials who were working for the Sinhalese and who pledged their allegiance to the Sinhalese government, and their allegiance and loyalty went above and beyond the their own loyalty to their own kind. So they betrayed their own kind, and more than betraying, they became enemies of their own kind. So one such person was Alfred Duraiappa in 1975. So what was Alfred Duraiappa? He was the mayor of northern region Jaffna. So he was a staunch Sinhalese supporter, a Tamil man, and a loyalist to the Sinhalese government. So he was he was assassinated. Nobody knew at that point, at the time, who, but later it turns out it was Prabhakaran, right? And Prabhakaran, directly, that was his first assassination. He directly carried it out. He was barely 20 years old, and then in 1975, there was a vicious Tamil police chief who was posted to Jaffna. He was not just vicious; he was ruthless, and the way he tortured the Tamil boys and the Tamil cause, how he punished people, the Tamils in North. There's so many people would say so many gruesome stories. He was assassinated, 77. So I don't know. These are the two significant people that I can remember. I don't know if there had been others in between. But then Prabhakaran and his friends, the boys who participated or who carried out this assassination, were 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 being hunted down by the Sri Lankan army and police. So they had no way. At one point in the interim, they robbed banks, like like a Western movie. They went out and robbed the bank at gunpoint because they needed money. Without money, nothing happens in the world. Especially, you cannot move your finger without money. You need the money. Without funding, nothing happens. Who would fund 22 boys who are hiding in the interior parts of jungles and coming out and carrying out these assassinations? Nobody. So they needed money. So the robberies became the only way they could go on with their ambitions, their their freedom ambitions, and so that said, when the hunt for these boys were intensified, became heightened in Sri Lanka. From north, it's a thin strip to South India. Like from the boat, you could cross within northern part. There's a little island in the northern part. I believe it's called Mannar Island, and from Mannar Island, it's like 20 minutes or something like that boats. So Prabharan is from a backwater area. It's known as uh, uh, I don't remember. So from there, the name of the place escapes my mind. Anyway, from there it's like 20 minutes. They all escaped to India, and India, they were welcomed as heroes at that time. This is, you're talking about before even late 70s. Then Indian Chief Minister M.G. Ramachandran, fondly known as MGR, uh, welcomed them with both arms, and he provided every support and everything they needed. The boys, they were called the boys, fondly called the boys, and that was the beginning of the rebel movement, LTTE. At the time, Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. Who was Indira Gandhi? Not to be confused with Mahatma Gandhi, who is considered to be the father of the nation, who fought for the Indian freedom and who was leading the Indian freedom struggle, and who, who without whom India wouldn't have gained independence from the British. So he was called the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Almost a saintly figure, a very spiritual man, and someone who is unlike politicians. He fought for the independence when independence became was when the Indians attained independence. He never wanted to be a political leader. He never wanted to rule. That was not his interest. He just wanted the people to be free. He just wanted to be a spiritual man. So that was it. But who comes into the game? A man called Jawaharlal Nehru, who was a follower of Gandhi, who went to who had served prison sentences with Gandhi and others when Britain imprisoned them. Britain could not go on forever. They tried every tactics, every means. They even murdered people, like in place called Jallianwala Park. Thousands of people were shot to death in one day. Even then, the Indians' fortitude was because of Gandhi. They were steadfast, and everybody went on protest march. So, what can a government do? The British government couldn't keep up, because how many people can you throw in jail? 10,000 people? Can you throw 10,000 people? 5,000 people maybe? Yeah. But how many jails do you need? But when 50,000 people protest, what do you do? So they couldn't keep up. So they finally gave independence because Gandhi became a nuisance. His freedom struggle was too much for the British to worry about. So they gave freedom. So Sri Lanka, which did nothing, followed suit. 1947 was India gained independence. 48, the next year, Sri Lanka was given freedom. That was the freedom of Sri Lanka from the British. Unlike Indians, they did virtually nothing. It was given on a silver platter, so to speak. So, at any rate, when India uh, post independence in Sri Lanka, 1947, 10 years later, 1957, uh, a prime minister by the name Bandar Naika. Bandar Naika, they are from the Nayaka dynasty. Nayakas are Telugu. So, of course, most Sinhalese are not Sinhalese, as they say. It's not a pure race, so to speak. But they are the ones who are staunch about their ethnic identity. So, Nayakas, all these leaders were from the Telugu origin. D.S. Sena Nayaka. Nayaka, the name, the last name Nayaka indicates they are from the Telugu region originally. His son Dudley Sen Nayaka again followed, and whose political rival Bandar Naika, who was an Oxford scholar. He came to Sri Lanka and he was, by some stroke of accident, he happened to get into politics, and he had no way of defeating Dudley Sen Naika, so he played a cheap trick, kindled and ethnic feelings of the Sinhalese. Sinhalese and Tamils lived in harmony. They had no differences. Different language, that's it. And they go to the temples, the Buddhist and Hindus worship side by side, because in Buddhist temples you have all the Hindu gods, because Buddha himself. By the way, Gautama is the real name. Siddhartha Gautama. Buddha is not a name. Although Buddha it's an appellation to Gautama, meaning Buddha means the enlightened one. Buddhi in Sanskrit and Pali language, Buddhi means intelligence. The one who has awakened the intelligence is Buddha. So Buddha is an appellation. You can say it's a moniker. But Gautama, why I want to stress that is most of in the Western minds, Buddha is confused, because the Chinese have, if you go to a Chinese store, they have an obese figure and they have some kind of lighting holy thing, but it's not Buddha. Obese figure with a bulging pot belly. It is something connected. They call that Buddha, that figure. I don't know where it originated from. It's not Gautama Buddha, but that figure is connected, related to some kind of superstition that has to do with something that brings good fortune. Chinese are very, very superstitious. So a superstitious race. So they have this obese figure. They keep it even any store. So it's supposed to bring good fortune. They call it Buddha. That's not Buddha. One and only Buddha, Gautama. His birth name was Siddhartha. Gautama is clan name. Gautama means enlightened one. And Buddha means the one who has awakened the intelligence, which was given and became his name. It's not a name, it's an appellation. Something that's given to honor somebody. Anyway, so much for Buddha. So Buddhists and Hindus worship side by side in the temples. So anyways, there were no differences. Bandar Naika, the Sri Lanka airport is named after him. They changed. He went through several name changes. When the government take over, they go back and change. And the other government comes over, they take back, they change. Anyway, now it's Bandar Naika Airport, International Airport in Colombo. Named after the man who brought about who was behind what happened to Sri Lanka in terms of racial rift, conflict, turmoil, and in the end, genocide. That said, so Bandar Naika played his cheap political trick. He was invoking the ethnic feelings. I won't say racial. Racial is different. Racial is related to the skin color in the Western world. So they would, in Sri Lanka and India, they refer to their ethnicity as race. It's just a misnomer. But anyway, he said, Sinhalese, we are Sinhalese. Are we going to be the slaves of British? Why do we need English? We are going to we're going to change everything to Sinhalese. Yay! But the idiots don't realize what they were supporting. It was changed to overnight Sinhalese. So what does the minority do? They have to embrace their own language, no more English. Sri Lanka used to be one of the give the devil the due. British did something good during their time. They educated the Sri Lankans. Sri Lanka used to have one of the best education systems, and they were known to be a nation who spoke very very proper English, very pure English, British English. That's all. That all changed after 1957-58, when the natives took over and they switched to native languages. Education, the stream of education, the medium of education was in Sinhala and Tamil, and English was just one language. It was not an official language. So all the baby boomers, nobody, uh, nobody, unless they had a grounding in at home or family, nobody speaks English well after the ones who went to school after 1958. Uh, and that said, that was the story. So Bandaranaike started it for almost 1958 to 1975. That's close to 2 decades, you would say, about 17 years. And there had been political dialogue that Tamil politicians, they are elites, aristocrats, rich people, who had they went to England, British universities, got degrees in Oxford and Cambridge, came back. They are rich, and they were politicians and leaders. They worked in tandem with the Sinhalese politicians, but the Tamil politicians, they failed to. They were more loyal to the Sinhalese than the Tamil voting population. So that didn't go too well, to put it in a nutshell. In 17 years of the modus operandi of settling Tamil Sinhalese issues was dialogue, diplomacy. Did not work. Why, after 17 years, the Tamil youths got tired. So they started rebelling in north and east. The rest of the country, the Tamils, just because of the environment, they spoke Sinhala and English. And so, north and east, the Tamil youth began to agitate. They lost faith in their politicians. Prabhakaran came into scene. He was just barely about 19 years. He didn't even complete his school education. Grade 10, the O level. Their education is very much they simulated the British system, even though they switched to native language. 95% of the syllabus is very much similar to the British, especially the science stream. That said, Prabharan school dropout. I'm not saying it in a derogatory way. So he went. He was an agitator with a group of his friends. He thought this is not going to go too well. We have to do something. He had probably witnessed firsthand what is going on, and as a passionate young man, he's from a backwaters town in Jaffna called Valvettithurai. And in that part, there are fishing community. That part of the city is known for a lot of smuggling, because the city is separated by ocean, and in 20 minutes from that part of the island, you can go to India. So they would buy things from India, bring it. And then they would evade the customs, petrol ships, sell, and then the police would shoot them down. And to fight the police, they would shoot back. And Prabhakaran was from that town. And when these things, uh, the Sinhalese started sending their police and to begin with the police and started harassing the Tamils. Prabhakaran took to, I mean, he's not a stranger to from his community, not stranger to arms. People carry guns in that community, so he lost faith and he started out with his friends. Uh, to begin with, first in 1975, they murdered a city mayor who was more loyal to the Sinhalese than Tamils, and his name was Alfred Durayappa. So Prabhakaran did not touch the Sinhalese until later on. He only eliminated the Tamils who betrayed their own kind, and and the Tamils who thought their allegiance or the allegiance went above and beyond to the Sinhalese because of the positions they were they held or given by the Sinhalese government. So the first first target was Alfred Durayappa, who worked mayor of Jaffna, who worked against the Tamils. Prabharan was the one who carried it out. Later, at that time, we didn't know. In 1975, I may miss some information. I'm only going into the notable one. In 1975, and that was 1975. In 1977, a ruthless, a sadistic Tamil police chief who was posted to Jaffna, who harassed Tamils and tortured Tamil youths, uh, was a ruthless man, Bastian Pillai. His name was Bastian Pillai. Bastian Pillai, yeah. He he was assassinated again by these boys. Done two major ones. In the interim, I probably could be missing. I don't know. These are the two major ones that comes to my mind. Guess what? The police and the army started hunting for Prabhakaran. Uh, the hunt was island wide. His picture was posted everywhere. And so Prabharan and his friends escaped. It's easy for them. In 20 minutes they sail in a boat. They are in South India. They were in South India, and the South Indian chief minister at that time, uh, known as MGR, otherwise fondly called, I'm sorry, his real name is MG Ramachandran, fondly called MGR, welcomed them, and they were treated as heroes and real Tamil heroes. MGR provided everything they needed. And there was a time Sri Lankan Tamils were treated like, you know, if you stop by, even in a traffic violation, the police would say, "Oh, you're Sri." When they speak, the Sri Lankan Tamil dialect is slightly different. It has a different inflection and intonation. So they know right away, oh, you're Sri Lankan Tamil. They would let them go. No, no, you guys are special, man. Go, go. That's how much they they were respected, and they enjoyed such good rapport and affinity with the South Indian state. Not only South Indian state, then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, she was not to be confused with Mahatma Gandhi. Indira Gandhi's father was the first chief prime minister of independent India after Mahatma Gandhi won independence. He didn't want to be a leader. He didn't want to be a politician. He was a very spiritual man. He retreated. So one of his one of his one of the men who joined from the elite community who joined him in the freedom struggle, who had been to jail, etc., with him, was Jawaharlal Nehru. He became the prime minister. His daughter was Indra Priyadarshini. Gandhi, how did she get the Gandhi name? The name was hijacked by the father, Jawaharlal Nehru. Mrs. Gandhi in England, at that time, young woman Gandhi, young damsel in England, met a Muslim young man, Islamic, following Islamic from the Islamic community. She fell in love. She wanted to marry. And the astute and cunning and shrewd politician Jawaharlal Nehru, as Nehru was, he saw this is not going to go well in the long run because he wants his progeny, his family lineage to continue to rule. So he wants his daughter to become the prime minister after him. So if she marries a Muslim man, she'll have a Muslim name, and the majority, probably 80% of the Indian population is Hindu. So he's going to lose all the Hindu votes. You know what politicians do? They pander to the vote bank. That's what the politicians do. So what did they? So what did he do? He went to Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, and said, "Will you adopt a young Muslim man as you preach the Hindu parents who should adopt Buddhist Muslim children who lost their parents, and likewise uh, Muslim parents should adopt Hindu children who lost their parents in the racial riots. Would you practice what you preach? Adopt a Muslim man?" I'm just saying it, my words, okay? So Gandhi probably said yes. That's the story pans out. So Feroz Khan was adopted. Feroz Khan's father was a politician in the government. Uh, so Khan is a Muslim name. All the celebrities have Khan names. It's a well-known name. So this guy, Khan, Feroz Khan, who married Indira Priyadarshini Nehru, was adopted legally by Gandhi. So Gandhi, I don't know if legally adopted or what, but Gandhi gave the permission. He's my son, so he can use my name. So Feroz Khan became Feroz Gandhi. So Priyadarshini, Indira Priyadarshini Nehru became Indira Gandhi. Everybody think it's only very. I mean, people get confused. They think it's Gandhi family, but one has to realize this was they hijack the name, political hijack Gandhi name because it's Gandhi, the godly man who won independence. So that itself will get the votes. So that's how later Indira Gandhi became the prime minister. The name itself will get all the votes. So she became a prime minister. So the Tamil Tigers were looked after by Indira Gandhi and the South Indian Tamil state leader MGR. They were given every support. The main intelligence agency, RAW, which is equivalent of CIA. What is CIA to US is RAW to India. RAW trained them, provided them all the weapons and trainings. Not only that, Mrs. Gandhi made sure they were trained by the Mossad group, Israeli, one of the topmost intelligence group, and they are said to be they have intelligence on everything in the world, far more superior to any intelligence service, and they train. Their training is said to be one of the best. In fact, if you are into martial arts, Krav Maga is an Israeli martial arts. They took Aikido and Apkaido elements of Korean martial arts and made it Krav Maga, the Korean, the martial arts of Israel. It's a deadly art. It's not martial arts competition. It's an art. They teach you to kill someone in 2 seconds. That's what it is. It's not going MMA and fighting like a boxer or for competition. So Krav Maga is one of the deadliest arts, and Krav Maga is taught in their training, in the Mossad training. So the boys got the Tamil boys, the rebel boys received that training. That was the beginning. Under Mrs. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi supported these boys, and the funding was South Indian Chief Minister MGR gave He was very, very generous to them, gave unlimited funding. And that's how the movement started growing. We'll stop here. Everything changed when Indira Gandhi was assassinated. She had her own battles to fight with the Sheikh. Sheikh is another state in India, said to be one of the richest states in India. The Sheikhs have their own language, Punjabi, and they didn't like the oppression of the Indian government of trying to reinforce Hindi on everybody, forcing Hindi upon everybody. So, and finally, the agitation became resistance to this day. Sheikhs, what happened? And Indira Gandhi had Sheikh bodyguards. The sad thing is, the Sheikh bodyguards shot Indira Gandhi uh, with their own machine guns. Like, it's a sad thing, you know. A bodyguard is someone who takes an oath to protect someone who has, you know, your personal feelings aside, you take on the oath. You don't care who the president or prime minister is. You don't worry about the ideology. I've taken an oath to protect. That's my job. I take the bullet for you. Instead, you turn the guns and they shot. Indira Gandhi, she died. She was assassinated. Her whole body was riddled with. Okay. I'll stop that. I won't say anything. So she died. She was assassinated. Her son, Rajiv Gandhi, took over. Everything changed upside down where Rajiv Gandhi took over. That changed the course of the liberation, LTTE, Liberation Tigers of Tamilam. We'll talk about what Rajiv Gandhi's, what happened in the aftermath of Indira Gandhi's assassination, what her son did, becoming the prime minister, and we are going to talk about what happened in the next segment. Thank you for listening, and stick with me, and I will try to give you the conclusion and make the next segment the last one. Thank you so much for your patience.